How do you follow up a hit so enormous you're almost too big to fail? How do you top the best work you've ever done, work that practically drove you to the edge? You could try and repeat the formula. Eagles and ABBA kept doing what worked for them. Or you could gamble, make something so unexpected, so against the grain, so downright deranged and indulgent that you almost ruin your career. This is the story of Fleetwood Mac's Tusk. If you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to my free newsletter. There is a link in the description below. But right, let's get into it. In 1978, the band gathered at the newly finished Studio B at the Village Recorder in West LA. It had been built by Geordie Hormel, heir to the Hormel Foods empire of Spam fame. This brand new studio had all the mod cons, including a Heineken beer tap, which was regularly replenished, a mirror-lined hallway designed to confuse any police who might raid the building, and even a secret compartment behind one of the walls to evade arrest if needed. Let's just say he was well aware of what naughty things his world-famous artists were up to. Not being short of money after the success of Rumours, the band were advised that they could either rent or buy the studio outright. They were ultimately advised to rent it and proceeded to run up a huge bill of close to $1.4 million, about $6.8 million in today's money, far outweighing the proposed purchase price. For 13 months, they ordered lobster, champagne, and the very finest refreshments. Yes, that most 70s of illicit substances, you know the one, continued to hold the band in its grip. They could have made an entire album with the money we spent on champagne in one night, said Christine McVie. It was absurd. Speaking of absurd, just wait until you hear about the tour. Be sure to stick around to the end. In the beginning, the vibe had been good. For the first hour or so at least, members of the band gathered to play their new demos. Stevie Nicks played a new breakup song, Storms and Sisters of the Moon. Christine McVie played two new ballads, Brown Eyes and Over and Over. So far, so good. Enter Lindsey Buckingham, the band's guitarist, co-writer and principal arranger, was determined to do things differently. He'd been listening to punk and new wave, Talking Heads and the Sex Pistols. He'd also completely cut off his long hair and beard with nail scissors following a heated argument with his girlfriend. He explained they would not be making Rumours Part 2, and if anyone disagreed with him, he'd quit the band. Deep down, he didn't want to be in Fleetwood Mac. He wanted to be in The Clash. I hate turning on the radio and being able to guess what an entire song will sound like in the first 5 seconds, he said. It sickens me. He would physically make me distort the guitar to sound like fingernails scraping across a chalkboard, the album's engineer, Ken Calais, recalled. One day, he said, turn every knob 180 degrees from where it is now and see what happens. He'd tape microphones to the studio floor and get into a sort of push-up position to sing. He was stressed and into sound destruction. Lindsey Buckingham was facing a few personal issues at the time. He felt a strong desire to do something completely different to the smooth California sound that had made him a multi-millionaire. He'd listened to the unreleased tapes of Brian Wilson's Smile and felt the pressure to reach similar heights of sonic genius. He began recording demos in his home bathroom, using empty tissue boxes and his mattress for percussion, and then painstakingly tried to recreate the sound in the high-class studio. They actually tiled the isolation booths to try and recreate the bathroom. Substances, of course. He'd also been diagnosed with epilepsy and was experiencing occasional seizures. Nor was Mick Fleetwood in great health. He continually fainted in the studio due to low blood sugar, made worse by his various habits. That Heineken tap in the studio had been installed to prevent another build-up of empty bottles next to his drum kit, as had happened during Rumours. He'd also lost his father He was getting divorced from Jenny Boyd for the second time, and he was having affairs, first with Stevie Nicks, which had started sometime on the Rumours tour, and then with her best friend, Sarah Rakour. Yes, the inspiration for Stevie's song of the same name, one of the best on the album. Stevie Nicks recalled, "That just turned into a nightmare. Sarah moved in with Mick overnight, and I got a call from her husband telling me the news. Neither of them bothered to tell me." Stevie began seeing the Eagles' Don Henley, who taught her all about living like an A-list rock star. Eagles were notorious for sending a private Learjet to pick up girls and then sending them back, leading to the phrase, "love 'em and leer 'em." Stevie became pregnant, but decided she couldn't have a child, but knew that she would have called her daughter Sarah, which led Don Henley to say the song was about him. As for the title track, Tusk was unlike anything the band had done before. Mick Fleetwood had travelled by private jet to Barfleur in France for a family holiday. Waking hungover, he heard a brass band outside his window. He grabbed the remains of his bottle of wine and joined the joyous procession. This event stayed in his mind as they later assembled the track, combining Buckingham's guitar riff with a medley of drum noises, including the tissue box and the rump of lamb slapped with a spatula. But this wasn't enough, and he couldn't get the sound out of his mind, so Mick decided to hire the entire University of Southern California Trojan Marching Band to play on the track. Faced with an already spiraling bill, Warner refused to pay, so he used some of his Rumours cash to hire the 112-member band, Dodger Stadium, and a camera crew. They soon discovered the band could only play while marching, which made recording impossible. So they had to march on the spot. It's just typical of the band's mindset at the time. Nothing was too much. Mixing the album, the band decided the Fade Out or Never Forget needed to be ever so slightly longer and returned the tapes by private jet to be amended. On hearing the album, the label Grim-Faced realised there'd be no Christmas bonuses that year. Releasing a double album meant it would have to retail at $16, around $70 in today's money. They'd also have to sell 500,000 copies just to break even. Doing their bit to help sales, the band insisted on an extremely uncommercial picture of a dog biting an ankle as the artwork. Things got even worse when the RKO radio chain played the album in its entirety before its release, allowing mass home taping. And the reviews were mixed. Critics remarked that while Rumours had merged the talents of all three songwriters into exceptionally strong material, Tusk felt more like three completely different solo projects, the track listing veering wildly between moods. Enemy praised the album and said it was no longer appropriate to compare the band to the likes of Eagles because they were doing something far more interesting. Ryan Reed of Rolling Stone said Buckingham's tunes are full of harsh tones, jagged arrangements, and vocal performances that feel almost confrontationally haggard. That's because by the time he'd entered Studio D, he'd already ripped apart his recording rulebook and set it ablaze. Mojo has since called it one of the greatest career sabotage albums of all time. It sold a respectable 4 million copies, but never reached the label expectations that Rumours had set, and so was deemed a flop. Still, maybe live shows might help the band recoup some of the costs. No.
It costs between $25,000 and $30,000 a day just to keep Fleetwood Mac on the road. But the investments in luxury jets and the separate limousines that emphasize their individual styles and in music are the group's own decision.
The 8-month Tusk Tour was the most outrageous of all time. 14 limos would meet the private jet to ferry the group and their entourages to their luxury accommodation. Stevie and Christine both demanded that grand pianos be winched into their hotel suites. Their rider instructed promoters to erect 2 lavish medieval-style tents for the backstage area, one for Stevie Nicks to get changed in, and the other for powdering their noses. One night, Mick Fleetwood filled their tour manager's hotel room with straw and dozens of chickens as a prank, adding to the already enormous bill after they escaped into the lobby. Champagne, private jets, outrageous demands, this all racks up. Learning they'd made absolutely no money on the tour, the band decided Mick Fleetwood would no longer act as manager and decided it really was time for those solo projects. Still, time has been kind to the album, with critical reappraisal calling it strange and beautiful, one of the last great works of the 70s. As for the title, for the longest time, it was thought to refer to Mick's preferred word for his manhood, until engineer Ken Calais cleared things up. The term, get tusked, means go f yourself. This was the attitude Fleetwood Mac had adopted under the onslaught of its newfound fame and fortune. They reacted in the most outrageous way possible. Tusk. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this wild ride. Comment below with your thoughts. Would you like more dives into some disastrous albums? As I mentioned earlier, I have a newsletter that I send weekly. It's free. You can, of course, unsubscribe anytime, but it's the best way for us to stay in touch. Please consider signing up using the link in the description. But as always, I'll be seeing you here again very, very, very soon.